From the national headquarters of RT America in our nation's capital, hello again, everybody. I'm Rick Sanchez. I am excited to be able to bring you this newscast on this Monday. We go at it again. I know you have expectations for new information, and that's exactly what we hope to deliver. With news out of Venezuela, where there are two important revelations that you need to know about. One involves an admission from CNN. The other is about an alleged attack on the Venezuelan electric grid system. Now, let's go ahead and start there. But you know what I want to do? I'm going to start this, interestingly enough, by reminding you of a similar story that was from just a few weeks ago. It was reported by the Washington Post. Let me see if you remember this. I know news goes by very fast. So the Washington Post in this story claims that Russians had sabotaged our U.S. power grid. Here's the headline, all right? The headline as it reads right there: Russian operation hacked a Vermont utility showing risk to U.S. electric grid security, right? Sounds ominous, right? But in the same story, right there, look, in the graph right under it, they give you this, right? It's like a retraction where they correct their own story, saying it's not true. Let me read it to you. An earlier version of this story incorrectly said that Russian hackers had penetrated the U.S. electric grid. Incorrectly, keyword. Authorities say there is no indication of that so far. So the story about Russians, or anybody for that matter, hacking the U.S. electric grid system is bogus. It's wrong. Didn't happen. So what does the Washington Post do? They turn it into a story that essentially says, well, but it could happen, maybe, sometime in the future, who knows? That doesn't seem honest, nor fair, right? But at least, props, they did the right thing by retracting the original story. That's what you're supposed to do if you're a credible news organization. Should that be the end of the story? No. Why? Well, along comes Rachel Maddow of MSNBC fame to then really blow it up with a McCarthyite scare tactic that would make even the dead senator reach for another bottle of bourbon. She leads her show telling Americans that Russia is attempting to kill Americans by freezing them to death. Yes.
And it is like negative 50 degrees in the Dakotas right now. What would happen if Russia killed the power in Fargo today? Right? What would happen if all the natural gas lines that service Sioux Falls just poofed on the coldest day in recent memory, and it wasn't in our power whether or not to turn them back on? I mean, what would you do if you lost heat indefinitely as the act of a foreign power on the same day the temperature in your front yard matched the temperature in Antarctica? I mean, what would you and your family do?
What would you do? What would your family do? What would you do if a plane fell out of the sky and suddenly hit your house? What would you do if you were crossing the street and suddenly you got hit by a bus? What would you do if green monkeys started coming out of your nose all of a sudden? Those what-if scenarios, they're neither fair nor journalistically sound. You could do a what-if on anything, but that's not reporting. That's scaremongering. That's scaremongering. You know, it's like going around telling people that our military is infiltrated by communists. What would you do if you found out that our entire military, CIA, the hydrogen bomb plants, were all infiltrated by communists, even if there was no proof? Well, that's exactly what Joseph McCarthy was saying about communists infiltrating the United States. Here's a clip.
In the past, many of the commanding generals, especially at Fort Monmouth, found that when they would suspend a man because of communist activities, because they thought he was an espionage agent, and if the suspension was upheld by the First Army, it would go down to the political board in Washington.
Yeah, they were suspending all the communists. Turned out none of that was true. There was no vast communist infiltration of the U.S. military or the hydrogen bomb plants or the CIA. We know that now. And there is now no vast Russian hack of our electric grid system. The story has been disproven, right? Pulled back, didn't happen. But interestingly enough, tonight there are accusations that someone has sabotaged, perhaps, the power grid in Venezuela, leaving 80% of the country without any electricity. That is, of course, an accusation. President Maduro is accusing, keyword, the U.S., but that's all it is. To be fair, it's an accusation. We're not going to go out there and start saying, well, he said it, so it must be true, as some other networks have done from time to time. So we on this newscast will report on what both sides are saying, and we'll also tell you about an admission of sorts that has just been revealed by a CNN contributor, no less. Get ready for the News with Rick Sanchez, where we are passionate about believing it is time to do news again. I'm Rick Sanchez. You found us on YouTube, and that's awesome. But you know what? I'm also live every night at 7 and 8 p.m. Eastern on DirecTV and Dish and cable and satellite, the RT app, and Pluto TV. I'll see you there.